Welcome to the Monday, October 2nd, 2023 session of the Lake Forest City Council. Will the city clerk please call the roll?
Certainly. Honorable Mayor Tack.
Here.
Alderman Novit. Here. Alderman Waldeck.
Here.
Alderman Notes.
Here.
Alderman Powers is absent. Alderman Preschlack.
Here.
Alderman Gushgarian.
Here.
Alderman Weber.
Here.
Alderman Walder.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Will you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is comments by mayor, and I would like to bring up an accomplishment of the Lake Forest Academy. As you all know, we are fortunate to have many excellent schools, public and private, but tonight I want to take a moment to recognize recent achievements of one of those schools, Lake Forest Academy. The Academy is a private boarding and day school located on a sprawling campus just off Route 60. The Academy draws students from Lake Forest, surrounding communities, and from across the country and from around the world. The slide that you see above shows some recent accomplishments of the Academy, including number 13 rank in the country and number 1 in the Midwest among boarding schools, and ranked number 36 in the country, ranked number 1 in Illinois for private schools. We'd like to congratulate the Lake Forest Academy for continued success, for achieving the impressive rankings as noted on the screen, and for being one of the city's treasured institutions. Next item is comments by City Manager, which will be presented by Catherine Cerniak, Acting City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2 updates for you tonight. The first from Tricia Schwall, the Senior Resources Manager, manager at Dickinson Hall. Often Dickinson Hall is hidden out of sight, and it's a great opportunity for Tricia to let people know what Dickinson Hall is, where it is, and what they do there. Tricia?
Thank you, Kathy. Can you hear me? All right. Thank you, Kathy, Mayor Tack, and council members. I just want to point out the number up on the screen and want to, I'll refer back to it at the end of the conversation that we have tonight to let you know what that number is. My clicker. So my name is Tricia Schwall. I am the manager at Dickinson Hall, and I really want to let people know what we do over there. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what I did, how I got there. I had no idea that 15 years ago I would have stumbled onto a part-time position at a senior center. I worked in corporate most of my life, and I found out what kind of passion belongs in a place like Dickinson Hall. I started in 2008, and 15 years later I'm now the manager at Dickinson Hall. We have 3 full-time staff and a handful of paid drivers that we have for our transportation program. And then we have a part-time program assistant who helps us out. For those of you who don't know Dickinson Hall, we are otherwise known as the Lake Forest Lake Bluff Senior Center. And it's my mission tonight to not only let you know who we are and what we do, but to also encourage you to spread the word about who we are. So in the 2020 census, about 25% of the individuals who lived in Lake Forest are over the age of 65. That's over 4,600 individuals. And while we have almost 900 members at this time, there are still a lot of residents who don't know who we are and what we do. We also span 4 generations. So we have the greatest generation, the silent generation, the baby boomers, and yes, even the Generation X. The average age of the individuals who come there is about 78. Do have a very vibrant group that comes. The picture that's up there right now is from our latest Friday Night Live. We had a rock and roll band and hors d'oeuvres and wine and beer on our patio. Then they come inside for a lovely evening of dancing and dinner. It was a really nice night. I don't know if I'm clicking this. I'm just going to talk briefly about our funding. The full-time staff at Dickinson Hall are city employees, and the rest of our funding comes from the Lake Forest Lake Bluff Senior Citizens Foundation, who give us a grant every year, and the rest of our funding is through program fees and sponsorships of local businesses that sponsor some of our events. Just a little. Nothing really more to say about that. It's just, I thought it would be interesting little information. This is where it really gets into what we do. So our main goal is connection, engagement, and socialization. In the National Institute of Aging, the two number one tips on aging well are prevent social isolation. Isolation. I'm so sorry. Isolation and loneliness, and then to prevent physical activity, to promote it. So with all the events that we put on, that's our number one also. We're there to offer adults educational, social, and cultural opportunities, as well as services fostering independence, involvement, and continued personal growth in a welcoming and dynamic environment. So just to give you a few ideas of what we actually do there, we have music appreciation. We do many lectures, which could be on famous presidents, engaging reenactments, referencing pop culture. We have technology assistance, parties, luncheons, trips, cards and games, podiatry services, fitness classes, and wellness lectures are just a few that we have available. One of our biggest services that we offer, we do have a senior advocate on staff. She is a full-time employee with Jocelyn Center, but she is our full-time, is housed at Dickinson Hall. She is there to help seniors in Lake Forest and Lake Bluff to get resources and information, might be about benefits, about Medicare, about housing opportunities, mobility issues. She can help find, she's a resource kind of person, so she's out there advocating for people who are missing benefits that they're not aware of, or tracking unmet needs of seniors. She comes across some of the unmet needs of the seniors in the Lake Forest and Lake Bluff area that she is able to help them find resources and try to find out what they can do to help. She's also a SHIP advisor, so that is a senior health insurance program counselor, and that's through the Illinois Department of Aging. So she, starting in a couple weeks now, will be open enrollment for Medicare. So she will have hundreds of people that make appointments with her over the next couple months to find out what the best benefits are for them, which plan they should get on, and which is the best offer for what she does. We also have a scholarship which helps individuals that live in the communities that cannot afford to come to programs at Dickinson Hall. So we have a scholarship set up through our foundation that she's able to help people with. We also have financial assistance to help individuals with financial downfalls. She can help with property taxes, and she also runs our On Our Own group, which is for individuals in the communities that have lost a loved one and are living on their own. So it's just a little group that gets together so they can support each other with things that might be coming up as they learn how to navigate through a new, different way of living when they're no longer with a spouse. So the second thing on there is our lending closet, probably our most popular item, especially during our pandemic. This is a lending closet that we have an abundance of walkers and wheelchairs and canes and you name it. So individuals, not even, they don't have to be members, but individuals in the communities are welcome to call to find out what we have. So a lot of people use it for hip replacement, knee replacement. They need to borrow a walker to get through. We have a lot at graduation time when grandparents are coming in from out of town and need a transport chair to get them through to the program. So that is available for Lake Forest and Lake Bluff residents to use. And lastly is our transportation program. We currently have one vehicle, one car, one sedan, and a bus. The transportation program is available to eligible residents, which includes a senior or a disabled individual who no longer drive and live in the Lake Forest, Lake Bluff area. We do approximately 800 rides a year, and we have paid drivers, and we also have a pool of volunteers that help us if we need to go outside of the Lake Forest, Lake Bluff area. Then we'll see if we can get a volunteer to help get somebody to a doctor's appointment or physical therapy or anything like that. And that is available in and around Lake Forest and Lake Bluff, and it is also available weekdays except for Wednesdays. For some reason, Wednesdays have never worked. So that is available, again, like I said, to seniors and disabled. So if you ever hear about anything, please let us know. Here's just a list of some of our fun upcoming events. We have a trip coming up on the 11th to the Lehman Trilogy at the Broadway Playhouse. Also our music appreciation, that is a very popular. We have a conductor who comes in and plays, so that's a really, he plays classical music and talks about whoever that month happens to be. We are talking about the haunted hotels of the Midwest. That will be with one of our luncheons. We have a time warp game show and a lecture about witchcraft and the witch trials in history. And we round out November with a beautiful poetry luncheon, A Dip in the Lake by Catherine Hayden. She'll be giving a presentation on that. So that's a local one that we'll be hosting. And we do have about 2,000 programs that we have annually. So we're always hopping over there. And lastly is just at Dickinson Hall, our number one priority is to deliver vital programs, services, and connect older adults to essential community resources to help them stay healthy, socially engaged, and independent. And remember that number I gave you at the beginning of the show? That was 15,000. That is approximately how many individuals that come in to Dickinson Hall annually to participate in programs, work with Senior Advocate, or use the lending closet along with our transportation program. So we are here for the community at large to help you understand that there may be a senior in your area that may need us but may not know about us. Our hope is that with every individual we come in contact with, it will increase the awareness of the activities and services we offer. I challenge everyone here tonight to help us spread the word on all that Dickinson Hall has to offer the residents in our great community. Any questions?
Questions for Ms. Schwal? Eileen?
Thank you. Thank you, Tricia. That was a wonderful summary of what Dickinson Hall. I've had the pleasure of assisting with some of the programming, and I know I'll be there on Wednesday this week with Woodlands Garden Club, and they've opened it up to the community to come for a floral demo. But my question to you is in regards to age. What is the age of a senior, or how? I mean, because every time I've gone, I've seen all these programs, and I don't think it truly represents, as you say, the average age is 78. I think perhaps more in the community may be applicable to some of your offerings.
So we're 50 and older.
Okay.
We always say there that, when you need us, you will find us. But we also do believe that there's people who need us that don't know we're there. And so it is 50 and older. And while, they're far and few between in the 50s, I think there are plenty that are in the 60s that have joined us. And we, as I said earlier on, we have a very vibrant group of people over there. It's really fun.
Thank you.
Okay, are there other questions? Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. Dickinson Hall is one of the true assets of Lake Forest. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Okay, the next item is a Deer Path Community Park update, which will be presented by Michael Thomas, Director of Public Works.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. This evening, we'd like to present yourselves and residents at home an update of Deer Path Park. We know you were, as a City Council, out there about a month ago. Things have changed, which is a good thing. Let me make sure this is on. Is it on? Here we go. Thanks, Dana. Here we are, April 10th, groundbreaking ceremony. And if we fast forward to the next shot, we are at 6 months. So next Tuesday, the 10th, will be 6 months exactly. And in that time period, there has been a good amount achieved. Obviously, all the excavation has occurred and the grading on the site. Various utilities, storm, sanitary water have been installed. The native plants have been planted in the detention area. The 16 field lights have been put up. The field itself has been installed, and then the building foundations and the utilities within those buildings are in. We also, though, and I want to give you just some numbers to sort of give you a quick idea of what we're talking about as far as quantities. 800 truckloads of topsoil have been hauled off, 200 truckloads of clay, 1,300 of stone. Truckloads of stone have been brought in. 80 concrete trucks we've had so far. We've got more to go. 3,000 feet of storm sewer installed. 3,400 feet of the flat drain have been installed. 16 lights have gone up. 13,000 feet of electrical conduit has been installed under the park. 181 rolls of turf. 1,000 tons of silica sand, 225 tons of rock fill, and 425,000 square feet of the Brock pad. So when you look at all of that in our world of construction, that's a lot. It's a lot to get done in 6 months. We had great weather at the beginning. Now we're starting to have a few challenges, but moving forward, we've got the north buildings and the south buildings. Those need to be complete. We're going to receive the trusses for the roof later this week. Roofs hopefully will be installed next week. Playground and fitness installation. The playground actually began today, so they're working on that. Once the 2 buildings are under roof, we've got all the trades that need to come in. So we've got the electrical, the plumbing, the HVAC, all of our guys in IT. We've got all the equipment sitting at MS, but there's a whole lot that needs to get installed. The bike path, we've got a 10-foot wide asphalt path that's going to go around that site. That still needs to go in. The camera installations, as I noted, the park equipment, as I noted, and then the various building furnishings. The biggest one moving forward is then the pickleball court. As we have heard, and you as a city council have heard as well, a strong desire by the community to go ahead and pursue installing a dedicated pickleball court. And the decision has been made to do that at Deer Path Park. The current layout, and actually, I say current, as of today, we're excavating the 6 tennis courts that were there. They are going away completely, and we're going to replace it with dedicated pickleball courts. Our original design had 4 tennis courts and 4 pickle, but we made a decision to go ahead and install 8 pickleball courts and add 24 parking spaces. We believe from a noise standpoint, this is probably the best park when we look at our entire park system. This is probably the best park to put the pickleball at. very few homes. You've got some across the street on Gulf, but otherwise, west, south, east, we've got basically very few homes. 24 spaces, but again, we've got 16 tennis courts that still remain in the city's park system, and one of them, West Park, we're going to look to bring to you at your capital meeting in November to redo that and upgrade some. This is the diagram that was on the previous slide, but just to give you a better idea of how this is organized, 4 courts on top, 4 courts below. You've got then a concrete path sidewalk down the middle that'll have canopies and benches for players that are waiting to get onto the court, or just an area to socialize. Through that clear white area, again, is the sidewalk that then leads you to the 24 additional parking spaces on the far right of the slide. And the grass area, we need to keep that grass simply for our detention requirements. It becomes an SMC requirement of how much of this area we're covering, so that is going to remain as grass. Next pictures give you an idea of what it's going to look like. That path, that concrete walk is 30 feet wide. Ours will be 25 feet wide, so very similar. It'll have those same benches, canopies, again, just a good area for people to meet and greet before they have the games. So coming up, schedule. Right now, our estimated completion is mid-November. We say estimated because right now we're fighting against one simple thing, and it's the weather. If it is wet, this whole thing's going to get slowed down. The more dry days we can have, the better. They are working Saturdays. They are going to work extra hours as well, but the weather is really the key here. We anticipate having about $200,000 remaining in contingency. That is our goal. We began with $500,000, so our goal is to have those dollars go back in the city coffers. Right now, we've got a ribbon cutting in mid-November, and then we're going to have a big grand opening next spring. So all in all, the project is going very well, and I know I've said this many times, but it is not only all the staff work and all the various departments that have put a lot of time into this, but it's also having good contractors. It is night and day when you have a good contractor, a good general contractor that understands the goal and the timing versus automatically taking low bid. That's what gets you this, and that's what gets you this, hopefully on time. So with that, happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for Mr. Thomas? Ted?
Thank you, Mayor. Mike, there had been discussion with the loss of the tennis courts that improvements would be made, particularly to West Park, which is in a deteriorated state.
Correct.
And with any of these savings that's been proposed, can you give us any updates on the city staff's
Sure.
considerations?
So, as you know, we are in the middle of developing our capital plan. So for us, that is due October 12th. You as a city council and finance committee will review that in mid-November. Included in that capital plan will be a recommendation to redo the West Park tennis courts. We're also looking at potentially adding an additional court, but we've got to look at logistically where that fits. There's going to be some engineering that's going to be needed, especially if we go east. We get a significant grade drop-off. We potentially could go south, but we're going into the park. We're also thinking Lake Forest Day and how all that works. But yes, that will be an item in the capital plan that will be recommended for you as city council to consider.
Thank you, Mike.
Any other questions? Okay, Mr. Thomas, thank you so much. I think it's an amazing project, and I think the speed at which you all have put it together is really remarkable. The next item is opportunity for citizens to address the city council on non-agenda items. Hearing none, we move on to committee reports. There are none this evening. The next item is items for omnibus vote consideration. So I'm going to read the items. If there are any items that an alderman would like to have removed or taken separately, please let me know. The first item is approval of the September 18th, 2023 City Council meeting minutes. Second item, approval of the check register for the period of August 26th through September 22nd, 2023. Third item, grant final reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 11 titled City Administrative Hearing System and creating Chapter 79 titled Recreational Powered Devices of the City Code. Item 4, approval of a purchase of 3 replacement police department vehicles to Morrow Brothers Ford and the advancement of fiscal year 2025 capital improvement program funding in the amount of $126,000. The fifth item, consideration of adoption of updated versions of previously adopted state and national life safety and building codes used by the city. First reading. Item 6, consideration of an ordinance approving a recommendation from the Building Review Board. First reading, and if desired by the City Council, final approval. Are there any items that aldermen would like to remove or take separately? Hearing none. May I have a motion to approve the 6 omnibus items as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
City Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Certainly, Alderman Notes,
Aye.
Alderman Preschlack,
Aye.
Alderman Gushkarian,
Aye.
Alderman Weber,
Aye.
Alderman Walder,
Aye.
Alderman Novit, Alderman Waldeck. 7 yea, 0 nay, motion carries.
Very good. The next item is old business, of which there is none. Under new business, we have one item. Consideration of an appeal of a decision of the Historic Preservation Commission to deny a certificate of appropriateness to allow replacement of a cedar shingle roof with a synthetic roof product in the historic district. This item will be presented by Catherine Cerniak, Director of Community Development. As a matter of introduction, tonight, the council will be considering an appeal of a decision of the Historic Preservation Commission to deny a request for certificate of appropriateness for a roof project. The council does not often hear appeals, and I want to be sure that all of us on the council, as well as petitioners, neighboring residents, and all other interested parties understand what is before the council for consideration tonight, and importantly, what is not before the City Council. The council is not conducting a public hearing on this appeal. That work has already been done by HPC. The City Council is not receiving new evidence in this matter as explained in the city's guidelines for appeals, which are included in the City Council packet for tonight's meeting. The council will be considering whether to uphold or overturn the HPC's denial of a certificate of appropriateness for this roof project based on the standards contained in the city code, as those standards are applied in the context of the council's other duties and responsibilities to the city. Alternatively, the council could remand the matter back to HPC for further proceedings. Since we're ready to proceed, I would like to turn this over to the City Attorney, Julie Tappendorf, to briefly review the appeal procedures and the council's responsibility in considering this appeal.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of notes. We don't hear these very often, so it's helpful to have a summary of some of the authority issues in the code and the appeal guidelines, as well as the procedures. So first, the city code authorizes this body, the City Council, to consider and decide appeals of denials by the HPC, the Historic Preservation Commission, of applications for certificates of appropriateness. And that code includes some procedures and timeframes for the city's consideration, but the real procedures or the meat of this, of the procedural side of things, are included in the appeals guidelines. And those were included in the packet, and the council's been provided with those. So just a couple of notes, and Mayor Tackett already mentioned that it's the HPC that conducts the public hearing. They receive the evidence, they hear the testimony, and then they make a decision. They are a final decision-making body, not a recommending body. There is that authority to appeal that decision, which happened here, and then it comes to the City Council. The HPC conducted multiple nights of hearings. Again, they weighed the evidence and made the decision, And the council's job is not to relitigate this or to hear new evidence. In fact, our guidelines prohibit the introduction of new evidence. The record is the record. So the evidence or the comments that are presented tonight by the petitioner and anyone else that speaks really should be within the record, the issues that were discussed and vetted at the public hearing. So there shouldn't be any new evidence presented tonight. While the process seems very structured and complicated, it's not intended to be like a court proceeding. So, you know, we'll be as informal as we need to be to get through this. The standards are important. The council's to consider the same standards as the HPC, except through the lens of the health, safety, and welfare. And we have been through this before in previous appeals, that the council also has other responsibilities, again, that promotion of the public health, safety, and welfare, as well as the city's fiduciary responsibilities. So tonight there are 3 options after you hear the presentations. One, you could uphold the HPC's denial, so based on the findings of fact that the HPC presented or any additional findings of fact. Alternatively, you could overturn the HPC. That means that you would be granting the appeal. If you decide to go that route, we do recommend that you, if you were to vote to overturn, that you also direct us to prepare findings, staff to prepare draft findings for you to consider, because the findings that are before you are the HPC's finding, which are consistent with the denial. And last, you could remand it if there was additional information or some direction you wanted to give to the HPC to remand it. Mayor, that takes care of everything from a legal end. Thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Point of clarification on that, just briefly. So the appeal that we're hearing tonight, we're not governed by the same 17 standards that the HPC took into account in rendering their decision.
You are. The city code specifically says that the city council is to apply the same 17 standards, but through sort of the context of your broader powers and authority.
Right.
The standards still are relevant to your decision.
Okay, great, thank you. They're relevant, but they're not determinative.
You are to apply them. The code specifically says that you are to look at this appeal in the context of those standards. So you are to apply those standards, but you do have a broader responsibility as well.
Great,
But
thank you, thank you.
Are there other questions? No? Okay. At this time, I would like to invite the petitioners to present their appeal. I would remind you that you will have 5 minutes for your presentation, and as I will ask others to pay attention to this time limit, I ask you to please adhere to the allotted time.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Mary Therese Williams. This is my husband, Greg.
Everybody, that's visual aids apparently.
Is it okay if we just put the samples out here for you?
those were not presented to the HPC, to my
Okay,
knowledge.
So,
They were at the workshop, so they were already already had the opportunity to, or were exposed to that.
Right, that was not part of the actual record, and the workshop is not part of the public hearing. So those were not considered as part of the HPCs, so that would be new evidence.
If you'd like to see them, they are here, and I think you'll probably find them relevant to the discussion. That's fine. Okay. Is it possible to pull up our presentation?
I'm sorry, could you introduce yourself again and
Yes,
state your
I
address, please?
Absolutely will. Okay, thank you. And just so I'm clear how this works. Okay, so my name is Mary Therese Williams. This is my husband, Greg Williams. We live at 333 East Woodland Road in, obviously, Lake Forest, so we're in Ward 1. This is our first time at a city council meeting, so thank you for having us. And I'd just like to make sure that I'm clear as well. Is it okay to assume that you have read both our petition and the appeals? Okay.
I think it's fair to assume that we have all read all submitted information,
Okay. I don't want to be redundant.
as well as the proceedings of the HPC.
Absolutely. Okay. Sounds good. So, what I'm here to share, obviously, and I just want to kind of ground you, was our petition about and our appeal about, and what are we asking for from you? So first and foremost, this is about our roof. It is a required structure that we have to ensure, and it protects our 5 children. It adds value to our home. It is not a nice to have, it is a must have. It is not an enhancement to our property, adding a pool or adding something fun to our backyard. So that's why we're taking it very seriously. That's why when told not to appeal or not to petition, I really didn't have a choice, because it is something that's significant to us and our family. What this is also is solving a problem that is nationally recognized. This is not a 333 East Woodland Road problem. This is something that is prevalent among the construction industry, insurance industry, lumber industries. It is not just Lake Forest in our home. We have tried young wood, as you read in the petition. Young wood, cedar is becoming an issue. It has failed us. And in addition to that, I think, you've read our insurance company, and our insurance broker has also made that very clear. And there's over 200 homes in Lake Forest that have also said no to cedar. So again, it's not just 333 East Woodland Road. Maintaining a visual appeal to our home and meeting those 17 standards has always been part of the consideration. We love our home, we love our neighborhood, we love our neighbors, and we do not want to take away any value from Woodland Road. And so I want to make sure that's very clear, and that is how we've landed on the Da Vinci product. We explored multiple products, which I have and have been shown, and I feel very strongly that Da Vinci is really the right product for our home. Some of the things that we have been talking about, or why I appealed, is there have been inconsistencies, and I appreciate your willingness to let me come and speak and come and appeal. Those inconsistencies I've experienced over the past 6 months, I don't intend to go through them nitty-gritty. I'm more than happy to offline, and have had conversations with those who'd like to hear about some of them offline. I don't think it's necessary. I think there's a couple things that I just would like to have recognized. Obviously, we know synthetic material is a scary thing for a lot of people. There's been synthetic material that's done well, and there's synthetic material that is not, and so I completely understand why the Historic Preservation Commission wants to take this very seriously, and I want them to as well. It is not our desire to put on an unappealing and not appropriate synthetic roof. So one of the important things to discuss as well is we've taken a couple issues with some of the information that's been documented. First and foremost, we are appealing because our approval was denied, and it was told that we need to workshop this, that we need guidelines for us to put this roof on. And I respect that. But in April of 2021, a home in the historic district was actually also up for composite siding. I referenced that, so I'm sure you all have listened to it. There were no guidelines for that approval of that composite material. And so I'm just questioning why our guidelines required now for a roof. That's making basically the same argument. It is also my belief that these guidelines will probably never happen. It was referenced in the April 2021 meeting that there was supposed to be a workshop to establish them. Again, in the April 2021 meeting, there was a to-do to have a meeting and set these guidelines. 2 years later, a week before my meeting, this workshop happened, and there were no guidelines that came out of it.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I'm just going to ask you, can you
Yep.
take 30 seconds to finish up, please?
Sure. So I apologize, I had a couple clicks. Can you give me a reference of what that was? Is it 30 seconds? Is that what those?
That was time.
Okay, thank you. There are no guidelines. There was supposed to be a meeting on September 14th, and that did not happen. There's no meeting to date scheduled to set these guidelines. And so for that reason, I think that we're just continuing to kick the can. My ask of you is that we can have an unbiased conversation. We can make a decision before the end of this roofing season, and that you can give us an opportunity to defend our position.
Okay.
Hope that was 30 seconds.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions at this time for the petitioner? Or should we hold off until the end? We'll hold off until the end, if you don't mind coming back and answering questions if we have them. The HPC will be represented tonight by Director Kathy Cerniak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. HPC Chairman Maureen Gurnell did designate me to provide a brief summary of the commission's discussion. They did, as was mentioned, consider this petition over the course of 2 meetings. At the end of the second meeting, they acknowledged that this is an important issue that they need to study further and address, and asked the petitioner if they would like to withdraw or have the matter continued. At the petitioner's request, the HPC did take 2 actions. Recognizing the urgency of needing to replace the roof, the Historic Preservation Commission granted a certificate of approval approving replacement of the roof with either asphalt, the original roofing material on this house, which was installed when the house was constructed in 1928 and replaced in 1964, or cedar shingles, which were put on the house in 2001. The commission took a second action and voted 7-0 to recommend denial at this time of the synthetic roof material, to allow them to study it further and come to some conclusions, as they have done with windows and with synthetic siding. In both cases, the commission has in the past approved criteria and moved forward with approving certain types of those products with specific visual characteristics. In summary, the board looked at their standards. A number of standards didn't apply because this just was a roof. They found that the current material, based on the information available, was visually incompatible. Visually incompatible had to do with characteristics they identified: texture, finish, randomness, aging. Standard 9, visually incompatible with surroundings. It was distinguishable as presented as a manufactured material, appeared as an imitation of wood. The profile and thickness, the end caps, the ridge caps were significantly different, particularly on front-facing gables, which this house has. The commission looked at Standard 12 and found that the materials as presented did not preserve the historic character. It altered a distinctive feature in this house. In this case, the roof is a very dominant feature and very prominent from the streetscape. Standard 14, they found that the proposed material as presented was inconsistent with the architectural style, Colonial Revival. Recognized that the house had a history of both asphalt and cedar shingles. And finally, the commission found that Standard 15 was not met, that when, in fact, material cannot be repaired or restored, that replacement should be done with a material that is of a composition, texture, finish, other visual qualities that replicate closely the material that's being replaced. Standard 17, based on the information available, the reversibility and whether the installation of this type of a roof would impact the fascia, the eave, other elements of the structure. So based on those findings, the HPC did recommend denial, and they were clear to say at this time, the Historic Preservation Commission has, again, acknowledged this is an important issue that deserves their study. They are working to schedule another workshop, and my guess is that they will likely identify some characteristics of a synthetic product, as they have done with siding, that could be approved and could perhaps be found to meet the standards as they move forward. The city attorney did present the council options, did review the council options, uphold the decision of the Historic Preservation Commission, overturn the decision. If you choose to do so, we would ask that you direct us to prepare findings based on your comments, or you could remand this matter back to the HPC. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Okay. Although this is not a public hearing, I would like to offer those members of the public who desire to provide comment on this matter an opportunity to speak. Each speaker will be given 2 minutes to provide public comment on the appeal as stated in the city's guidelines for appeals. Please remember that the HPC has already conducted the public hearing on this matter, and council members have been provided with and are well aware of the testimony and evidence provided by those of you who participated in the public hearing. So while we look forward to hearing from you, there is no need to repeat what you have already stated before the HPC. The city clerk will keep track of each speaker's time, so please pay attention to her cues on when your time is nearing an end, so that we can move forward and ensure that everyone who is interested in speaking has an opportunity. Is there anyone who would like to address the council? Please state your name and address.
I'm Laura Luce, and I live at 111 Ridge Lane, and tonight I am representing the Lake Forest Preservation Foundation. The LFPF supports the recommendation of city staff and the unanimous decision of the HPC to deny a certificate of appropriateness for the replacement of a natural cedar shingle roof with a synthetic material. The home at 333 East Woodland is a contributing structure in the East Lake Forest Historic District, and therefore requests for alteration must be bound by the 17 standards specified in the ordinance. While several standards are not satisfied in the petition, we feel the most relevant standards are 7 and 15. Standard 7 requires that, quote, the relationship of the materials and texture of the facade shall be visually compatible with the predominant materials used in the structures to which it is visually related, end quote. And while Standard 15 does not require replacement materials to be identical to existing materials, it provides that they, quote, should match the material being replaced in composition, design, color, texture, and other visual qualities. In the workshop conducted by the HPC, a panel of 6 architects concluded that synthetic roof products currently available are not visually compatible with historic structures and are not appropriate for historic districts due to appearance. This visual incompatibility is exacerbated in this roof application because the house currently has cedar shingles, not shakes. The smaller dimensions of natural cedar shingles make the roof appear lighter and more refined, complementing the architectural features and design elements of the house. In contrast, the proposed synthetic shakes are heavier in appearance than natural cedar and will not have the natural variation or behave the same over time, which is of concern for an historic structure that contributes to the district. Last, we agree that asphalt shingles would be a suitable compromise given that asphalt is an historic material, was present previously on the house, and relates visually to other houses in the district. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any others who would like to address the council on this matter? Okay. Again, please state your name and address.
Hello, my name is Martha Zeman. I'm at 395 East Woodland Road, and I'm simply here to say I'm a neighbor. We did a restoration of our house. I met with Historic Preservation. It's a very detailed process. I am not an expert on roofing or any of the things, but I am a neighbor and feel that this home has been meticulously maintained over time. This is a family that is invested in the community. They have 5 children who are going to our school system. It's a beautiful home on the street. I've seen no reason to believe that they would ever do anything that would hamper the property or their prominent location on that street. So I just, as a neighbor, am saying that we would support the proposal that they have put forward. That's it.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions or comments relative to this matter? Please state your name and address.
Bob Moltanili, 420 East Woodland Road. One, I've been involved in historic preservation for quite a while. I restored an 1844 church in LaGrange, Missouri, and in addition to other things, I got an award from the state of Missouri for my efforts. I'd like to make 2 points. One, today's cedar, although you can go and buy cedar shingles or cedar shakes at a Home Depot, they are nothing like what used to be considered a cedar shingle. They deteriorate, they cup, they crack. It's very difficult to install. I think at the same workshop, they were negatively viewed. Secondly, asphalt shingles that were invented in 1903 have nothing in common with today's asphalt shingles. I have here, and I can give it to someone, how an asphalt shingle is made. It has nothing natural about it, nothing historic about it. I think that living on Woodland Road, I would much rather pass a Da Vinci roof than an asphalt shingle roof. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there other comments? Please step up. State your name and address, please.
Hi, Alice Moulton Ely, 420 East Woodland Road, like my husband. I hope you saw the letters we both wrote for the previous HPC meeting. They detail some of our thoughts, more detailed thoughts. But at least tonight, from what I understand, there have been a number of delays since 2021 to try and resolve the question of whether the Williams can install a synthetic roof with a shingle called Da Vinci. They need a new roof now and have been working on this project for years. Please at least grant an exception at this point for the Williams to protect their house from further degradation and raccoon attacks by supporting their appeal and overturning the HPC's decision. Remanding it back to the HPC would further delay the project or risk denial again. In due time, the HPC and our city can decide whether to revamp the historic preservation ordinance to accommodate the reality of today's building products for roofs. Evidently, all 6 architects in the city's workshop said that they would not use wood shingles for a roof, and only one had used a synthetic at all. However, all deemed the synthetic not to properly replicate the look of wood. It seems then that visual authenticity is in the eye of the beholder. My husband and I went to look at Da Vinci roofs in non-historic districts in the parts of town where it's allowed, and could not tell the difference between them and real wood shingle roofs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other comments? Please come up, state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Carrie Sherman. I stayed a little later. I'm a photographer for the City of Lake Forest. It's an honor to be part of this meeting tonight. I live at 1272 Wynwood Drive. Mayor Tact and staff and city council members. I bought a 3-acre property in a wooded lot, and I put a new roof on this past year. I got 3 bids, and I will tell you, I have a flat roof, so you can shake your head right now. Flat roofs are tricky. And in order to do something that is going to be appropriate, you should get multiple bids, and you should do something that will be sustaining long-term to protect your family. And from an aesthetic design decision, which is very important to Lake Forest, which I love because I own a business here, I ended up hiring a company that has been in business for 40 years and put a very beautiful pea gravel substrate on every level of my flat roof that matches my driveway. It is a beautiful roof. It cost me so much money that I eat sandwiches for dinner. Having said that, and on behalf of this family that wants to have a Da Vinci product, as long as it looks very similar, and I rehabbed a house, I bought it as is, and I had the best contractors, and I fed them every day, and I paid them in cash on Fridays, and I got permits. So we're good. So having said that, if this is a design decision, my request is to consider, is the Da Vinci product causing emission issues to the environment? And could we consider staining things and matching as best as possible with really good general contractors and roofers who know what they're doing, because I believe in them. So I believe in putting a roof over a family's head.
Okay.
Thank you for
very much.
listening. Sorry, rambled.
Are there any other comments? Okay. Hearing.
One more.
One more? Okay. Please state name and address, please.
Jan Gibson, 59 East Franklin Place. I just retired from the HPC right before this petition. The HPC has given you a 7-0 decision. I'm also getting my master's in historic preservation, and on Saturday I just turned in a 30-page paper on a very timely topic, using alternative materials in historic districts. I have a few unbiased current findings to share with you tonight. The National Park Service that oversees historic districts clarified the use of alternatives. In their first criteria, they state alternative material can be used in kind, wood for wood, stone for stone, when the original material is unavailable. While there is a discussion about availability of cedar, there is Alaskan yellow cedar and Canadian cedar, both. For a simple statistic taken in this chamber, that we still have cedar available, we found out that 42.8% of the HPC commission members just had or are having new roofs made with cedar shingles. It's a pretty large percentage in a small group of owners. I explored a 2009 survey of 18 mid-sized cities using alternative materials. And in 2019, these cities were revisited. There were more alternatives accepted, including some synthetics, because the quality had improved of the alternative materials, and these materials had been thoroughly tested. I believe this appeal should be denied on the lack of quality of the synthetic wood shingles due to 4 reasons. 1, the material is so new that it has not yet been tested thoroughly through third-party testing. 2nd, the material has had problems with UV rays and fading. 3rd, the brittle nature of the material is problematic. And 4, there are problems with edging and coping. Bottom line, the material isn't ready yet for our historic districts. For these reasons, please support the HPTC's decision and deny the appeal. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Okay. Hearing none. At this point, we'll bring the matter back to the City Council for questions council members might have of the petitioners or other party before the council discusses and takes action on this appeal. Alderman Preschlack.
Hey, Kathy, can you give us a sense on the timing it took for the siding installation that was synthetic, in terms of, oh gosh, there's petitions coming up with this material, but we don't have guidelines or criteria, to the point where so the new criteria was established and the HPC was actually using them and the 17 design standards to adjudicate a petition? What was the turnaround, the process, and what would your sense be in terms of the HPC now and its composition to do the exact same thing? How long would it take?
When, and it's been in fairly recent years, the HPC was presented with a petition that proposed the use of synthetic siding. The HPC discussed it, I believe, over the course of 2, no more than 3 meetings. In that case, the petitioner provided significant information and actually had very large mock-ups built on side by side with the natural wood siding and with the product. So over the course of probably 2 to 3 months, in that case, the commission was convinced that the standards could be met with a product not of a certain manufacturer, because the HPC doesn't pick and choose manufacturers, but a product with certain visual characteristics. And I believe that the HPC is prepared to do the same with this. Certainly this appeal has delayed some of the review processing of the HPC, but the HPC, again, made a point when they approved a motion to deny of saying at this time, they are very aware that this is a discussion they need to have quickly and really understand the entire range of synthetic roof products so that we can assure that if they move in the direction that they identify visual characteristics that will assure that the synthetic product is of high quality. We all know there's a whole range of quality of various products. So I believe before the end of this calendar year that the HPC will have made a final decision on synthetic roof products and have identified what type could be found to meet the criteria or the standards.
And I have a question for the petitioner. So Ms. Williams, can you just comment on the current status of the roof? Are there leaks in bedrooms? Are there holes in it? I mean, what is the hardships,
and I
so to speak?
apologize. I am happy to show you pictures on my phone. So I have 2 leaks in 2 of my children's bedrooms. The hallway, the paint is currently coming off. We didn't know we lived in a historic district, so I had spent 2 years researching and doing my homework only to have our petition or our permit sent to find out that, guess what, we live in a historic district and it needs more approvals. So I did not intend to put my back up against the wall. My back's now against the wall. If I have to get it done because we have, and again, I can show you pictures, we have leaks that are coming through every time it rains. The last month, my daughter has water that comes down and leaks on her bed.
Have you considered doing kind of stopgap measures to address the areas of concern?
So that's what we've been doing since we've purchased the home, to be honest with you. And I mean, that's why we had the raccoon situation, because we tried to patch. At this point in time, the roofers cannot do anything more because the roof is so brittle. I have a sample of the roof, one of the existing shakes that's on the roof. They can't go up and do any more repairs because the moment they're going to just keep breaking.
Thank you.
I have a question, Ms. Williams. Thank you very much. I mean, your testimony is very compelling. But Kathy, to Alderman Preschlack's point, is there something that can be done on a temporary basis? And not trying to be funny, but I'm thinking about the library dome. You know, we had a plastic sheeting over that for how many years? 6 years now? Is there something that can be done to protect their home that, again, in a temporary measure? I'm encouraged to hear the direction that you're going in, but I also understand the timeliness of this issue. Are there any other alternatives that can be done which could possibly get them in that direction?
That would really need to be discussed between the homeowner and their roofing contractor or a variety of roofing contractors. But certainly from the city's perspective, we see homes that take temporary measures to protect, whether it's a roof or siding, all the time, sometimes for extended periods of time, much to the neighbors' dismay. But certainly temporary fixes are possible if the homeowners choose to do that.
Thank you.
Alderman Note.
Thank you, Mayor. Kathy, you had mentioned that the Historic Preservation Commission had started the process, or was prepared to start the process of evaluating synthetic options. Do you have a sense that they would have come to a decision had there been more time that would have allowed, whether it's the proposed Da Vinci product or something else, that the commission would have found acceptable and again, in a short period of time?
The commission did start this process. They did hold a workshop and invited in 6 architects. They saw products that were provided by staff, a variety of products, natural products and synthetic products. And based on the commission's conversation at their last meeting, before they voted, my sense is that there's a very clear commitment on the part of the commission to address this issue and address it expeditiously. I think we even heard from at least one commissioner who was biased and very committed to looking for a way to support the petitioner, but found that some visual characteristics of the product presented did not quite satisfy the standards at this point. And again, I think my sense from the commission is that they want to be sure before they widely open the door and say any synthetic product is permissible, that they can come up with a set of visual characteristics that would allow a product to ideally meet the standards. So I believe they are committed to moving this discussion forward quickly.
I'm sorry, just to bring it home again, from what you have seen, does that exist? Or are we just chasing our tail?
I think the commission certainly has concerns, but I also heard the commission, to a person, recognize that the availability of quality cedar is limited. It's out there. We probably had 40 homes re-roofed in cedar as a result of the last hailstorm, so that product's out there. But I can't give you a guarantee, but I believe the Historic Preservation Commission is committed to studying this closely and talking with vendors. We've heard one product referenced here. There are a whole bunch of companies that produce this product. And what we saw with siding over the course of a period of time was that the manufacturers responded to the concerns that were raised and improved the product. So I believe there's a solution. I think the commission will come to a decision quickly. I can't guarantee what their conclusion will be.
Thank you.
Alderman Preschlack.
I just have a follow-up question on that then. So how do you envision the process working? Do you envision there's a series of workshops and a bunch of vendors come in and they talk about the product and the commission evaluates it, and then there's some back and forth and just some knowledge and discovery, but then there's criteria or product that map to the standards and the issues, and then there's approved vendor list almost, or products, or not? Or is it still going to be case by case? So how would this be implemented, and how will we really know that that it will get in the mix, so to speak?
Again, I can't guarantee what the commission will do. What they have talked about is identifying visual characteristics, not manufacturers. The commission can't identify just like city staff can't say we'll only accept projects from this architect. The commission has already reviewed a number of samples. They've talked with architects. The commission has requested the opportunity to do a bus tour, which we had scheduled and are working to reschedule. They want to see real-life examples of different synthetic roof-type products and compare those to other roof products, whether it's cedar or slate or metal, tile. We have all sorts of roof products in the community. My sense is that after the workshop, the commission will have the discussion. Are there a set of criteria that synthetic products, whether they be shakes or shingles, could meet that would allow the standards to be met in their determination? I think they would look at finish, sheen, thickness, whether the product attempts to imitate a natural product or not. There's been some discussion about the wood imitation perhaps appears a bit more manufactured and less random than the slate product. So my sense is that they will evaluate whether there are a set of visual characteristics that whether it's made by company A or company B, they will be able to look at. And then certainly the commission does look at petitions on an individual basis. But there needs to be some consistency as they apply the standards.
And last question, and then I'll stop asking. Are there other communities like Greenwich or Darien or on the North Shore that we can short circuit this process so we could get to an answer faster?
We've done some of that research and we're continuing to do some research. There certainly are communities that have historic districts that allow certain synthetic products. And that's all information we are preparing for the commission.
Alderman Novit?
I noticed in the report, reading the minutes and comments by commissioners and neighbors and everybody that weighed in, one of the big questions was how it's going to age and how it's going to look as it ages because of the way cedar shake ages and asphalt ages. And with the synthetic materials, have they been around long enough to age, to get some sense of what the aging process looks like?
That is one of the concerns. There's also a concern that different quality of synthetic materials will age differently. Again, just like good quality cedar shingles or poor quality cedar shingles. So that is something that will be investigated. They certainly haven't been around for 40 or 50 years or more. But I believe the commission will look at that question as well.
Alderman Weber?
Thank you. Kathy, can you recall when the first roof in Lake Forest with the synthetic product was installed? About how many years ago?
I don't know the year, but I do know that it was...
my parents' house?
No, it was before that.
Okay.
Alderman Preschlack and I...
Sure, yeah.
Alderman Preschlack's father-in-law, many years ago, came before the Building Review Board at that time, and his house is not in the historic district, and the synthetic roof products were not permitted in the city, and he made a very good case. His house is deep in the woods, and there was a site visit, there was a lot of investigation of the quality of the trees, the amount of moisture in the cedar shingles, and it was a very in-depth presentation. And to my knowledge, that was the first time a synthetic roof product was approved in Lake Forest. Again, after due diligence, but it shows over the course of time, the boards and commissions have absolutely moved from what used to be required.
In follow-up, so I would applaud the commission to take action on their research and move forward with doing their more investigative to come to a set of metrics or guidelines that can be used moving forward if they find something that they feel is acceptable. Being in the 4th Ward, we see homes that are allowed to put on these synthetic materials. And that's something that's special about being in the historic district, whether you knew or not. And I sympathize greatly with the condition that you're currently in, and you mentioned, the time that you need to make some repairs. So when the commission goes and does their work, I would recommend that they maybe go by these homes that maybe they've had the roof on for 5, 10, 15 years now and see what product was used. And I can only imagine things have even improved more and more since then, and not necessarily limit to a specific manufacturer. I do think it's important to respect the HPC's decision, but as some of my fellow aldermen have commented, I think it's really important that that the commission moves quickly to look at these type of materials so that they can have the most new and innovative options for our residents to consider.
Alderman Waldeck?
Let me just ask, so after the HPC considers the alternatives for the synthetic roofs, would that then require an amendment to one of the 17 characteristics that the HPC has to look at when granting or denying a request.
It could, but it would not necessarily require an amendment to the standards. If there are visual characteristics of the product, again, I'll go back to siding, that the commission has identified as being characteristics that will allow the product to meet the 17 standards. So I don't know that this discussion will involve a specific amendment to the 17 standards, which come from the Secretary of Interior standards. So the city didn't make those standards up.
But those standards would have to be amended or changed by city council, I take it.
If there were
In their direction to HPC.
If there were amendments proposed to the 17 standards or any part of the city code, yes, that would be a recommendation from the HPC to the city council. But the commission could also, without putting in the code, they review petitions all the time, and they make that analysis, and most of the time it's not appealed to you, but they make that analysis of whether or not those 17 standards are satisfied. So if a code amendment was proposed, yes, it would come back to the city council.
But as the code as the standards stand now, they've been denied. And there's no wiggle room at this point in time to allow them to build the roof based on those 17 standards.
Based on the commission's
Application of those standards to the petition.
decision at the last meeting, again, they acknowledged at that meeting that they needed to do further research. They needed to learn more. But at the petitioner's request, they took action to deny as opposed to continuing the petition. But yes, based on the decision of the commission, based on where they're at today, they determined that the standards that were identified were not met.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Tech. You know, I think for the rest of my council members, this is an ongoing process of review and re-review. When we deal with new materials that come to market, it's the responsibility of all of us, including the HBC, to continue to keep reviewing these products so that we can provide our citizens the best opportunities and the best products to clad their homes. There's no guarantee, I don't think, if we do spend an exhaustive research on the synthetic products, that we will approve them at this point in time. But we will be in the mindset of continuing to review those materials so that we are prepared when they are appropriate, that we can be using them in the historic districts. We don't want to get into a situation where we're limiting our citizens to having to put a roof on their house for which there's no insurance, or for which there be an extreme cost associated with it. So so I think right now as it stands, I think as the HPC has reviewed their criteria, I think they applied their criteria correctly.
Other questions from Alderman?
I just have a few comments.
Alderman Goshgarian.
And again, I think the question that Alderman Waldeck brought up was germane. I was just curious in terms of the process and would there need to be an opening of that code, modification of the 17 standards. And I think you've answered that question for me. But I would echo what Alderman Walther has just said. I think we're duty-bound to continually look at these things, but looking more globally beyond your particular issue, I think we're placing a pretty significant burden on people who reside within Historic Preservation District, and quite honestly, throughout the rest of the city of Lake Forest. There are HOAs that require cedar to be placed up there and not synthetics. And as you look more globally in terms of insurability, it's going to become problematic, as all of us have seen probably within the city. Our homeowners insurance, as most of us, those premiums have doubled. There are people who are now going to be faced, and I think the insurance industry will, in the not too distant future, not insure cedar roofs for full replacement value. So I would encourage the commission to look at this in an expeditious manner and look beyond just those 17 standards. it's concerning to me because I think we're in a world now with various external factors in terms of the severity of the weather. I think we have to be more flexible. Regrettably, for me, as the 17 standards sit in front of me, and I don't know if I'm the most sympathetic one to your situation up here, but I'm one that is terribly sympathetic. I wish we could approve it, but based on the standards as they are, and in the particular area within the city that you live, I genuinely would have to side with the Historic Preservation Commission and think that they did an excellent job. And I want to acknowledge Commissioner Grinnell, right, the chairman, and the work that they did. It's particularly frustrating because I do feel your pain.
Can I have the opportunity to speak? I just think it would be fair. Yes?
One comment, but you have had
Yes.
5 minutes.
So I would vehemently disagree with the decision of the HPC being a unanimous vote. That vote of 7 was based on the consideration of all roofs, not my specific roof. So the visual compatibility of what I presented and my Da Vinci product is very, extremely visually compatible.
Okay.
It is, and I think I should be allowed because there are several things that have been stated by
Well, but
the
this,
city
this
that are
isn't
inaccurate.
this isn't a hearing for you
I
to present new
understand.
evidence, and
I
I
just-
appreciate
it's
that, but
Here that that the commission found these not acceptable because if they were looking specifically at mine as is, and as Kathy has said multiple times, the role of the commission is to look specifically at the individual petition, not the entirety of composite roofing. It is how compatible is the Da Vinci Mountain Shake on our home.
okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, just make a comment. I was on the city council, I'm on the city council now. I was on the HPC for 6 years and I chaired it. And, you know, those 17 design standards are applied to an individual petition, but the compatibility is within the neighborhood and the streetscape. And so the petition and the city's interpretation of the standards and the HPC's interpretation of the standards were consistent. And so part of our responsibility as city council is to support the community development processes that have worked well in the community. And there's really, if you look at the process and how the staff interpreted those standards to the petition and the HPC did, there was really nothing that was not done it was not done correctly. Now, I understand that as a homeowner, and me included, I would feel the same way. We have sympathy for that. And I think that's why I'm very anxious to get the process moving with the HPC. And hopefully there's some way at the micro level to address the issues that you have at your home so we can catch up. I mean, I think that's the conundrum, and I think we all feel that. But we also have to be advocators and supporters of a process in the historic district that served us well. And in this particular petition, there were really no glaring errors in application.
A lot of glaring errors, Alderman.
No, and I think that's.
There's a lot of glaring errors.
Okay.
And I pointed
I have a
out.
question. So as I understand it, there has been an approval for either a cedar roof or an asphalt shingle roof. Is that correct?
Correct.
And I'm assuming that there are quality and aesthetic components that apply to those approvals as well. In other words, there has to be a cedar roof of certain approved quality standards and/or an asphalt roof that has certain aesthetic and quality standards. Is that correct? Or it's not just any cedar roof or just any asphalt shingle roof. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, are there further questions or comments from the alderman regarding this matter? Okay. The next item is to move forward with a motion. And am I correct that the motion initially should read to uphold the decision of the HPC? Is that what I'm asking for?
I suppose it's at the pleasure of whoever wants to make the
Well,
first motion.
we have to start
Because there
somewhere.
were three, and I think that's, if you get a motion maker for that, then yes, that would be the way to
So
proceed.
is there a motion to either uphold or remand or reject the decision of the HPC?
I'd like to make a motion to deny the appeal and uphold the Historic Preservation Commission's decision, regrettably, but that's a motion I'd like to make.
Okay, is there a second for that motion? Okay, this will be a roll call vote on a motion to uphold the decision of HPC regarding this matter, or deny the appeal.
Alderman Preschlack.
Aye.
Alderman Kashmirian.
Aye.
Alderman Weber.
Aye.
Alderman Walter.
Aye.
Alderman Novit.
Aye.
Alderman Waldeck.
Nay.
Alderman Notes.
Aye.
6 yea, 1 nay, motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much, and we appreciate you coming and presenting to us tonight. Are there any other additional items for commentary or discussion by council members? There being none, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.